Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and I have never read any books in the Grisha-verse except for The Language of Thorns, which is a collection of fairy tales that would be told in the Grisha-verse. However, being on BookTube and Book Twitter, I have heard a lot about the Grisha-verse and specifically about Shadow and Bone, especially recently because a Netflix adaptation has come out. And so I have been reading all the buzz on Twitter and seeing everybody get excited, and I'm really happy for everyone who's getting to see one of their favorite book series adapted. But I have also been seeing a lot of people wondering what people who have not read the books will think now that they're seeing the show, and it's getting exposed to a wider audience of all the people who watch fantasy shows on Netflix. And so that's what this vlog type thing is going to be. So far I've just watched the first episode and I'm going to watch them one by one and tell you my comments afterwards, and this may be one video or a series of videos depending on how many thoughts I have per episode, so you'll know by the title how many I tackle in this video. But I do have some preliminary thoughts that I want to share with you. First of all, information that was put out before the actual show was put out. I only fairly recently found out that the Darkling, who I've heard loads about in the past and have only ever heard referred to as the Darkling, is just a regular guy with shadow magic. I was picturing, you know, a drow, like from R.A. Salator's work, or some kind of dark elf, or, you know, weird creature, not just a dude with a particular kind of magic. Although at least I've heard a couple of fans of the book say that, yeah, that's kind of a stupid name. I would have had less particular expectations if he had been referred to as like General Kerrigan, which is how he is introduced in the show. And so I think that is a better way to introduce his character to a first-timer, and so if I had never heard about it from BookTube, I wouldn't have had that like disappointment. So about the first episode, some things that are a little bit different about this show versus other stories and serialized stories is there is no pilot episode where there's this big thing that happens that gets you involved in the show really fast. I felt like it was really a slow starter. It was slow to the point of I had to play a video game while I watched it. I played Stardew Valley, FYI, and I probably missed little details that people who read the books would enjoy, but as a first-time experiencer, there wasn't anything that really grabbed my attention right off the bat. I did fairly immediately like the character of Alina, I think is her name. The prejudices against her immediately put her in the place of an underdog, which makes it easy to root for her, and she's shown as having a very strong friend relationship with this Mal character, who I've seen a little bit of reactions from people who have read the books, which I'm trying to stay away from so I can do this video without those opinions like influencing it, that have said that they like Mal better in the TV show than in the books. They didn't like Mal as character in the books. So I find that interesting because so far in the show I have only liked Mal. He seems like a nice guy, and most of what has been characterized about him is his friendship with Alina. That he likes to brawl and get into underground fights is what it looked like, and is a fairly skilled fighter. So far, first episode, Mal I like, Alina I like. The Darkling we haven't actually really met yet. We've just seen his carriage trundling along. Now the other character I've heard the most about I think is Inej, if that's her name, but she is like the ninja character is the vibe I'm getting. Like I watched someone cosplay as Inej yesterday, and very cool outfit and badass and everything, and so I was prepared to like her but wasn't really sure. When she was first introduced in the show, she's shown as working for Kaz Brekker, but you don't learn very much about her very fast. The moment when I figured out that I liked her a lot is when, and there's going to be spoilers for the show, so if you haven't watched the show I don't know why you're watching this, but actual spoilers start now. There is a scene where someone called Alexei has been captured by let's call him bad guy number one. I don't remember his name. And they're trying to figure out how he survived getting across the rift, the shadows, the something that fortunately was shown on a map, which was very helpful. I really appreciate that, as this big black thing between two countries that are apparently at war with each other, which that part was very confusing for me. Like, I was paying fairly good attention to those parts, and I still don't understand the war or what the rift has to do with the war. Like, I thought I understood it, but then there appears to be people from the same military group on both sides of it that are like allied with each other, so then what I had thought doesn't make sense anymore. So anyway, the bad guy number 1 is trying to figure out from Alexei how he survived getting across this blackness, and he's clearly been tortured and mistreated, and Inej goes over and gives him water and like pats his head and is really nice to him and trying to take care of him, and even though she doesn't know him at all, and he's like the person being interrogated by her somewhat employer, but she's really kind to him, and from that moment I was like, yes, I like you. Whereas Kaz Brekker, who she is like her intermediary between this big boss and her, who's like a middle management level boss of her, has shown no likable traits at all. Not saying I will never like him, but thus far in the show, he has been shown to be not a likable person. So things got really interesting for me when the monsters appeared, because Alina and Mal are crossing this. I'm gonna go watch the next episode in a moment, so then I will be reminded of what it's called, because they need to go to the other side because Alina is a cartographer, which is a really interesting job for a main character. I don't think I've seen that before, so I actually am really interested in that. And they lost some maps of stuff that's across the rift, so she is crossing with a bunch of soldiers who include Mal, and they get attacked by these really cool winged monsters who are kind of wyvernish and a little bit creepy Nazgul-ish. That's when things got really interesting for me, and felt like really fantastical. And we'd seen a little bit of wind magic and a little bit of fire magic before that, but this was when it really felt interesting and really fantastical and grabbed my attention. And those are my thoughts on Shadow and Bone so far. I will now go watch the second episode and we'll tell you what I think after that. Okay, so second episode down, a lot happened. It was much more fast-paced. First of all, we had Alina be tested to find out that she is a Grisha, which means a magic user, and specifically she is a sun summoner, which was name-dropped as a thing that doesn't exist in the first episode. And their powers include making light, as we saw at the end of the first episode when she was getting dragged away by a scary Nazgul monster. And we know that this is a very coveted power because it scares away the fold monsters, that's what it's called, and otherwise it's very difficult to cross the fold. You get eaten by monsters. And maybe with training, her power, we're told in this second episode, could get rid of the fold entirely, and which is generally considered a good thing by most parties, it seems. And this testing is when we're introduced face to face to Kerrigan, aka the Darkling, and I have to say, I don't like his countenance. He's got a very arrogant countenance, and I think that the actor is portraying that accurately to the character. I think that's the type of annoying but yet charming character that Kerrigan is. He's also portrayed as quite a stoic character, although we do get some somewhat unexpected emotion from him when he tells Alina that she is Grisha, therefore she is not alone. We also had our first magical battle, which is very cool. Apparently one side of the war has magic Grisha, and one side has more technological advancements, and that was discussed a little in this episode and makes me wonder why the country with the Grisha hasn't bothered to try technological advancements and railguns, or repeating guns. I guess they think that the Grisha are so wonderful they don't need to do that. So that's an interesting point that was brought up. We saw some firebenders, basically, and some airbenders. And then we also got to see the Darkling in action, making a blade out of shadows and cutting some guy in half, which is pretty cool. But yeah, a bunch of Grisha were taken down by people who shot arrows and guns, which was somewhat unimpressive. It seems to me like the Grisha trust in their abilities a little bit too much and should put a little bit more work into things like being aware of their surroundings and seeing whether someone's gonna shoot them or not. And recon and having scouts out farther from you, and things like that. And they also acted like Alina was safer with them because she's being hunted for being a sun summoner, because the other guys who have the big guns like to take out as many Grisha as possible, especially very powerful ones. They acted like she was safer with these Grisha than she was with the entire army of non-Grisha, and that doesn't seem to be accurate considering how badly the Grisha were beaten by the gun havers. The Darkling, however, who has shadow magic, Shadowbender, seems to actually have the power and skills, actual fighting ability to back up that one man can protect her thing. Something that I really enjoyed is the emphasizing of Mal and Alina's seemingly platonic relationship. It's been portrayed as platonic thus far, and as far as I know it continues to be, and that was like really emphasized and shown as a really important thing to both of them in this episode, and I really appreciate that. And then on the flip side, the other perspective or storyline that we're following with Inej and Casper and Kaz, that developed quite a bit as well. We learned a lot more about Inej and Kaz and their background together, and how how Inej has been trafficked as a slave and is currently owned by this nasty lady, and how Kaz is like in the process of buying her in installments, and how Inej is like this very Black Widow-ish in fighting style and sneakiness, you know, that archetype. But she doesn't kill people. She apparently is part of a religion, and part of that religion is not killing people. And that's a really interesting juxtaposition to have this girl who is covered in knives and is a very assassin type person who does everything but kill people. And then we see Kaz's devotion to Inej, which makes him a much more likable character, actually gives me something to like about him. Plus also he has a line where he says, "Don't let fear determine your choices, only spite." And at that point I was like, okay, I can get behind this character. But initial thoughts on the relationship between Alina and Kerrigan, which in discussions about the books I've heard has a lot of importance placed on it. Bit contentious at first, followed by some nice moments when he rescued her, followed by, after having said you're not alone because you're a Grisha, he then left her very much alone in this little palace, I think it's called. Didn't introduce her to any friends or anything, just go sit in your room in the dark and be sad. Hopefully that will be addressed in the next episode. So the third episode went fairly well. Alina got to know the other, Alina finally became introduced to the other Grisha, so now she's starting to form friendships, and there's this really nice redhead who I like. There's also shown to be some tension, a little racism with this whole part Shu thing, which the show has translated to be Asian, and that was interesting to look at. There's also shown that she's getting a lot more privileges than the other Grisha, even though the Grisha are already ridiculously privileged compared to normal people. We were introduced to Nina, who is a heartrender, I think is what they're called. They can convince people to do things, and they can also like control the blood in your body and make you die that way. Don't know very much about her yet, except that she doesn't like the government, which, you know, go her. I don't really like this government either. We got to see the carrying of the goat scene that has been much talked about on social media, and also the hugging and kissing of the goat, and a lot of adorableness with the goat between Kaz and Jesper. Inej didn't get a lot of action in the third episode. We saw more of the Darkling, and he introduced her to court and showed off her powers, and we learned that he can like amplify other Grisha's powers, which is interesting, and got introduced also to the whole bone part of Shadow and Bone with the stag and that's on the front of the cover and everything. But other than that, I don't have a lot to comment on for the third episode, so I started the fourth, and then immediately Kiergan is picking out clothes for Alina and being like, call me Alexander. And I'm like, no, it's too soon. We don't know you well enough. Just back off for a minute. And it feels a little fast for me. I just feel like I want a little bit more distance in that relationship for a while before things start getting mushy and weird. So those are my feelings right now. I don't know, now we're sharing about our childhood. And then Kerrigan's saying all this stuff about, I will take care of you, I won't let people turn on you. And I'm like, she don't know you. She barely met you. Why would she trust you? There's suddenly a lot of kissing in episode 5, some of which I was prepared for and some of which I was not. I was prepared for the second one, by the way, not the first one. The first one was just, I may have made a face. Still episode 5, and I'm absolutely disgusted with Kerrigan's handling of Mal. Definitely getting bad guy vibes. We had a little reveal, didn't we? Which is interesting. And actually makes the moniker the Darkling a bit more understandable. Maybe not so human after all. Still, wish he was a drow. It's episode 6. Mal's back and everything's better. When I found out that their post was being stopped, I was very upset. And if I find out that the Darkling is the one who stopped their letters from reaching each other, we're gonna have a problem. Because, like, that's on my top 10 list of not actually despicable things, somewhat petty things that I find absolutely despicable and, like, nigh on unforgivable. So if he's the one that stopped the post, well, I'm gonna have a hard time forgiving him. And he has treated Alina with lots of lies, and that's very upsetting to me. I don't care as much about the whole he created the fold and he turned a bunch of people into monsters, probably accidentally. And also I think at the moment he's looking for the white stag to give to her to increase her power so she can get rid of the fold. That's my little theory that I have. And he does seem to have genuine affection for Alina, but the whole hiding things from her thing, especially regarding Mal, I'm very upset about. Also, that relationship got romantic way too fast for my taste. I really don't want this nice Ivan man to die. He's very cute with his boyfriend partner person. The boyfriend partner person's gonna want revenge, and then two people I like are gonna it's gonna be bad. I don't want the nice man to want to kill Jesper. It's all very sad. He didn't kill Ivan. Everything's gonna be okay. Oh, it was him. Ooh, we have a big problem. Very big problem. Additionally, he put Jenya, the nice redhead, in a position to be sexually assaulted by the king repeatedly over years. So, you know, he's got a lot to make up for. Boy, we don't like him very much right now. Well, that was a heck of a finale, wasn't it? A lot of stuff. I really liked the use of the stag. The Darkling's turning out to be downright despicable. Mal, still really likable. Inej is freaking awesome. Kaz is pretty great. Jesper's pretty great. Oh, and all along we've had this development of Nina meeting this Matthias fellow, and now they're all on a boat together. So I really like the setup of us knowing that pretty much everybody we've been following up to now, except the Darkling, is on a boat together, and assume that something's going to happen with that. A pretty satisfying ending, but I am very much like, how long till the next season? Because I want, you know, the final conclusion. up till now, how I feel about the story up till now, I like it a lot. It's quite clear that Nina and Matthias's part of the story has thus far just been set up, and so we'll only get to really see what goes on, how they impact the larger story in the next season. Inej, Kaz, and Jesper really like as characters, and I've found their story arc satisfying. Pretty much every character except maybe the Darkling has had a definite character arc that has moved somewhere, that has changed who they are, and sometimes that can be hard to do all in one season of a TV show for a bunch of different characters, although I have seen it done before. But yeah, I'm quite impressed with the show as a whole, with the plot arcs, the character arcs, the development, the story, world building, the magic system, and I haven't noticed any terrible plot holes. A lot of TV shows aren't so geographically based, and it's a little bit hard to understand a geographically based story without a map. But those are my reactions. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!